In 1904, the Workmen's Hall in Tonpentra provided a stage and hall for concerts and entertainment. The hall was converted to a cinema in 1931, but due to the local mine closures, the hall fell into decline in the 1940s. It became known as the Tonpentra Workmen's Hall after World War II. Films were shown until 1971, when its last film was Countess Dracula, starring Ingrid Pitt. After 1971, it became a bingo hall, which continued until 1989, and it was then left derelict until 1991, when it was bought by Rhondda Community Development Association. Rhondda Community Business Initiative was formed in 1990 and reopened as Phoenix in 1991. In 1996, it was listed as a Grade 2 by CADU.
In 1907, a Tylerstown farmer was summoned for not observing the law in the matter of sheep dipping. A police officer stated that he visited the farm and told the defendant of the necessity of dipping the sheep, in accordance with the provision of the Sheep Dipping Act. Later in the year, he again visited the farm and found 20 sheep had not been dipped. A fine of 40 shillings, including costs, was imposed.
A Rhondda labourer appeared before Valley magistrates in 1912 accused of bigamy. The court was told that the offence came to light when a woman discovered that the married defendant had already married her sister 12 years previously. Confronted by the magistrate, the accused man said that he had taken a dislike to his first wife because she chewed tobacco. "She can chew more tobacco than anyone here today," he declared, to the amusement of the court officials. The magistrate was not prepared to chew the cud, however, with him, and he was remanded in custody before appearing at the assizes.
In 1912, Sir Ernest Shackleton, CVO, paid a visit to Treorchy under the auspices of the Welsh Historic Drama Society and delivered his famous lecture on the South Pole expedition. Sir Ernest Shackleton was cordially received on rising to deliver his lecture, which was illustrated throughout by cinema films and photos taken during the expedition.
In 1913, a royal command for George Formby was being planned shortly after he was due to appear at the Empire in Tonopandi. Mr. George Formby, the popular Lancashire music hall singer, has received a command to sing at Lord Derby's Royal House party at Knowsley Hall, and it was interesting to note, in view of the royal command, that this great Lancashire comedian and singer has been secured by Mr. Sam Duckworth to appear in the very near future at the Empire Tonopandi.
At the Royal Cinema Tonopandi in 1917, on show was a very pathetic triangle drama entitled Home. This drama, which is in 4 parts, features Bessie Barrascale, the idol of screen, in a story of her homecoming. This picture is one that will be sure to be appreciated by every member of the audience. In the first edition of the new year, the Rhondda Leader newspaper in 1910, priced 1 penny, it was reported that Llwynapere workhouse inmates were regaled with beef and plum pudding. Thanks to the foresight and large-heartedness of Pontypridd Guardians, the inmates of the Llwynapere homes were able to enjoy their Christmas fare amidst the brightest surroundings. The day's bill of fare consists of beef, pork and plum pudding and was much enjoyed. The dining room was prettily decorated with sprigs of holly and mistletoe, whilst a number of floral decorations added colour to the surroundings.
In 1914, the Upper Rhondda, which had been in darkness after dusk for the past couple of months, is again displaying brilliancy. The Rhondda District Council, it is understood, to have engaged full-time lamplighters at the magnificent rate of £2.18 shillings and 9 pence a week of 47 hours. Formerly spare-time lamplighters were engaged, but a couple of months ago the latter refused to continue the work without additional pay. The men had to be on duty at an early hour in the morning and a late hour at night. In some quarters, the street lamps were lit practically every evening by schoolboys who remained in the streets to play after dusk.
August 1911 marked the death of a legendary Rhondda boxer, Tom Thomas from Pennagraig, who held the middleweight champion of England title and who died at the age of 32 following a short illness. Shortly before his death, Tom took part in a contest in Ogmore Vale, and after the fight he decided to walk back home over the Bulk Mountain but got lost on the way. To make matters worse, it rained heavily, and when he reached home he was thoroughly drenched. The cause of death was cardiac failure following a bout of pneumonia. Tom Thomas was one of the best known boxers in Great Britain. He was a popular figure in sporting circles, and what is unfortunately rare in the profession, he was a gentleman first and a boxer afterwards. He was, however, possessed of little business skill, otherwise he might have died a rich man. To a press reporter, he once declared that he was the biggest fool that ever won a championship. He fought close upon 50 battles before he tasted defeat, and it was against a heavyweight boxer called Jim Sullivan that he lost on points. His greatest victory was over Charlie Wilson at the National Sporting Club, where he secured Lord Lonsdale's championship belt. In 1915, Private W.A. Wall of the machine gun section of the 2nd Monmouths, whose home is in the Rhondda, sent this letter home. We had Christmas Day in the trenches. The Germans, whose trenches were quite close, came halfway over and shook hands with our chaps who met them. They then exchanged cigarettes and chocolates. Afterwards, they sang over the graves of the Germans who had been buried on Christmas morning. We had more men from home to fill up the gaps. We have just come from the trenches after 5 days in them. In 1914, Thomas and Evans, the well-known provision merchants of Porth, stated that 61 of their horses had been sent away for army service, and as a result our means of delivery had been seriously disorganised. The merchants appealed therefore to all their patrons to assist us so far as possible by taking all light goods home by train or tram. They hope to recover from the shock in a few days and have agents now out buying horses wherever they can find any that are not required by the army authorities.